Hey, my wife got back from Korea yesterday, which is pretty awesome. She'd been there for a couple months dealing with some family issues and seeing family and so on. And one of the things she brought me back was this cool T-shirt, which features JG, who is a little cartoon icon on something called the Kakao app that we use to talk to one another. So if you see me walking around town in my JG shirt, then be sure to say hello. I wanted to talk today about what I think is gaslighting. And it's something that I've been coming into increasingly when it comes to my critiques of Alisa Childers. I've sought to be very plain and direct in my critiques, but not incendiary, not inflammatory, but simply to provide evidence and arguments to support a very plain analysis. I began when I published my book, Progressive Christians Love Jesus Too, by giving a 200-page case against her book, Another Gospel, where she argues progressive Christianity is another religion and another gospel with another Jesus. And in that book, I sought to argue and just lay out point by point how her claims are false, harmful, and I think in many cases she actually just doesn't know what she's talking about. Now, at that point, I would say that what she was spreading was misinformation, and that's a more charitable way of saying, to some degree, maybe she was non-culpably ignorant of some of the things that she was saying about fellow Christians. But certainly she knows by now that a lot of the things she's saying are false and indefensible. I believe that the evidence is publicly available, certainly in my book, in the debates and dialogues I've done, and she's utterly not engaged in any of that. But what she has done is provide increasingly subtly nuanced articulations of her position. So, for example, in her book, she says that she pits two different views of hell against one another. The one view is universalism, which she says is heresy. And then the other view that she gives is eternal conscious torment. She makes no mention in the book of annihilationism. Uh, and so she leaves the reader with the understandable conclusion that in order to be an Orthodox Christian and not a heretic, you have to believe hell is eternal conscious torment. She has since come out, and I've heard this in interviews in the last several months. She will acknowledge that one could be an annihilationist, but she'll just kind of leave it at that. What she doesn't do is say to her reader, or sorry, the viewer of these interviews, hey, you know what? I just only gave the option of eternal conscious torment in the book. I was wrong. I was mistaken. Same thing when it comes to penal substitution. In the book, she conflates penal substitutionary theory of atonement with the doctrine of atonement. She has since tried to separate herself from that error in interviews, and I've talked about some of that in recent videos I've done. But what she doesn't do is come back and own her mistakes and say, you know what, I said false things here. And so the extent to which I critique progressive Christians based upon a conflation of eternal conscious torment with the doctrine of hell, or the extent to which I critique them by conflating penal substitutionary theory of atonement with the doctrine of atonement, I apologize, I was wrong. She doesn't do that. So what that says to me is that while she's trying to cover her bases in terms of modifying her thesis at least somewhat, what she's not coming is what she's not doing is clearly explaining her previous error and how she's now modifying her position in acknowledgement, I take it, of the critiques that she has received. And that's, to my mind, disingenuous. And as I'll show you in a moment, she's continuing actively to promote the erroneous claim that progressive Christianity is a completely different religion and different gospel. So she has well earned the critique and criticism she receives and that I give her. I have noticed, however, that when I do call her out on this, I will get pushback from Alisa Childers supporters saying that I'm being mean or I'm being rude or I'm being uncharitable. And I want to offer a response to one of those criticisms this morning. I just received it this morning on Twitter. So let's take a look. So someone sent me a screenshot of a public event that Alisa Childers is doing. And so here it is. It says, 3 ways progressive Christians disagree with Jesus. And so what she lays out here in this talk she's going to give is how progressive Christians allegedly just disagree with Jesus, which I think is a profoundly offensive and false, erroneous, and harmful statement to make. Yes, there are progressive Christians that I think disagree with Jesus, just like there are evangelical Christians that I think disagree with Jesus. And if you want to hear more about that, then watch my debate with Doug Groteis on Unbelievable with Justin Brierley. But this statement right here is false and harmful and misleading. So I tweeted it and I said, I'd love to have a conversation with Alisa Childers about whether progressive Christians disagree with Jesus. Too bad she is not interested. I don't think that's particularly inflammatory or offensive. I think it's just direct, saying she continues to perpetuate falsehoods, harmful falsehoods about fellow Christians, progressive Christians, and she refuses to dialogue with one of the preeminent defenders of them, which is myself, right? And the book I wrote. So then I received a response from Ryan Pauly. Now, I was on Ryan Pauly's YouTube channel in the summer. I found him to be an affable fellow, but I also found that of all the points I made within our interview, they just seemed to have evaporated like dew in the morning sun. So here's what he said in response to me. Why do you continually make her, Childers, look bad with posts like this and then wonder why she doesn't want to talk? What is your purpose in posting this and saying, too bad she is not interested? What do you hope to accomplish? Okay, so the first thing here, let's just address this question. What do I hope to accomplish with the tweet? What do I hope to accomplish is to call out Alisa Childers, to show that she is actively spreading disinformation and she refuses to correct the record and have any interaction, any dialogue with her neighbor, the people who have evidence that she is spreading false and harmful disinformation about fellow Christians. So that's what I hope to accomplish, is to call her out. What I don't hope to accomplish at this point is to get her to agree to be in the same room with me and actually have a dialogue. I recognized months ago that that's not going to happen. So if Ryan Pauly is suggesting, as he may be here, that what I'm doing is counterproductive to having any dialogue with her, rest assured, I gave up the possibility of having any dialogue with Alisa Childers months ago. That's not the point. The point is to call her out. So then he says this. So I want to come back to the first thing. Why do you continually make her look bad? Why do I make her look bad? What I'm doing is I'm pointing out that the things she's repeatedly saying and that I've been calling her out on for months since my book came out in April, and frankly, since I reviewed her book last year, and also did videos last year, which obviously she didn't respond to. What I've been asking for is for her to address these false, harmful views that she's perpetuating, and she refuses, of course, to do that. I'm not making her look bad. I'm simply reporting on the fact that she's spreading false and harmful misinformation and, frankly, disinformation. I believe it's disinformation because she's on notice with rebuttals, and her own modification of her position with respect to hell and atonement, I think, is, as you say in the law, evidence of a guilty conscience, right? It's acknowledgement of the fact that she has done something wrong in her book, and yet a refusal to own and to acknowledge it. What really disturbs me here about Ryan Pauly's tweet, however, is I would interpret what he says here as a form of gaslighting, attempting to get a person to question their own reality. And in fact, I do investigations. I'm a licensed professional investigator. And when I look at like a workplace conflict investigation, one of the things you look for is the possibility that the perpetrator, the culprit, as it were, the aggressor, may try to turn the tables on the person they've offended against and make that person think that they are in fact the one at fault, and to make the investigator think that they are the one at fault. This is called DARVO. DARVO refers, it's an acronym for deflect, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. In other words, when you begin to interview the alleged aggressor in the incident or the exchange, they might say, well, I'm not the bad one here. This person did something to me first, right? And what they're trying to do is to reverse the dynamic between the victim and the offender, or the one offended against and the one that was the offender. And that's what it seems to me Ryan is essentially doing here, is saying, you're making her look bad with your posts. No, what I'm doing here is reporting how she's spreading false and harmful misinformation and disinformation. here is that graphic again, but I just want to what I didn't include on the tweet is the fuller description below it. I'm going to just read from the second paragraph. In this talk, Alisa will describe the intellectual journey she took over several years as she wrestled with a series of questions that struck at the core of the Christian faith. Then she will give an overview of the movement of progressive Christianity and demonstrate how it disagrees with historic Christianity and even Jesus himself. Progressive Christianity is a different religion with a different God and a different Jesus, and that's not a Jesus who can save you. Now, that could not be more clear, right? It could not be clearer. It could not be more overt, stark. What Childers is going to argue in this talk is that progressive Christianity is a false religion. It's another religion entirely. It has another Jesus, and it will not save you. So if you follow progressive Christianity, by implication, you're going to hell. And in fact, Alisa Childers, I believe she wrote an article that was in Decision Magazine with the Franklin Graham, his foundation a few months ago, and on the cover of the magazine said progressive Christianity can lead you to hell. So here's the claim: progressive Christianity is false. It's another religion. It's a false gospel. It has another Jesus, and it will lead you to hell. And when I call that out, I'm the bad guy. How dare I to point out that Alisa Childers continues to spread false and harmful misinformation and disinformation about fellow Christians. And I have the temerity to call her out on social media and say, she won't talk to me. And she continues to spread this false information. And I'm the bad person. As I said, I think this is Darvo. This is attempting to reverse the victimizer and the one victimized against, the offender and the one offended against, by saying this person who I'm calling out for continually spreading false and harmful disinformation that hurts fellow Christians, that by calling her out, I'm the bad person. I'm not the bad person. Alisa Childers is engaging in unchristian behavior by ostensibly building what she would have us believe is a ministry devoted to truth, by building it on falsehoods, and not just trivial falsehoods, but really serious falsehoods about what progressive Christianity is and who progressive Christians are. Now, again, not all progressive Christians are Orthodox Christians, just like not all evangelical Christians are Orthodox Christians. But the thesis at the heart of her book, Another Gospel, is false, and it is harmful. And if you call it out as such, you are not the bad person.